like I said, 2022 was a great year for us. We added a lot of cash to our balance sheet from selling that analytics. But for all of us to get together and see the potential in the generative AI and take that, the funds that we raised and take our investors along and say, we're actually going to make this transformation. It will take us 2.5 quarters. We're going to do it, was amazing. And here's the final thing. Our customers that were on the encrypted analytics platform have taken the journey with us as well.
Assemble the council.
Welcome to episode 14 of the Cybersecurity Council podcast. If there is one episode that you listen to between now and Christmas, listen to this one, because it is going to teach you more about generative AI and what it means to be an entrepreneur than any other episode. You need to listen to Arti Raman.
Arti Raman is the founder and CEO of Portal 26, an award-winning enterprise generative AI governance, responsible use, and data security platform. Arti has been nominated for 2023 Cyber Person of the Year. She might even tell us she's won that award today. There's the 2022 Titan Business Award for Female CEO of the Year, Female Entrepreneur of the Year, 2022 Tech Trailblazer, 2023 Silicon Valley Business Journal Women of Influence, and 2023 Data Power Women of the Year. Under Arti's leadership, Portal 26 has been recognized over 20 times in just the last 36 months alone. And Arti's also been recognized as one of the top 10 women CEOs shaping the future of tech in 2024, according to CIO Influence. Arti, fabulous to talk to you. Please say hello to our audience.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored and privileged to have the opportunity to share my thoughts and be your guest here today.
It is always good to talk to a CEO founder. Now, your company, Portal 26, enables enterprises to safely adopt generative AI while simultaneously managing and mitigating any risks that might be there. So let's start right there. In your words, tell us about Portal 26.
Thank you. We have found generative AI to be quite unusual as an enterprise application. People have adopted it far before enterprises have sanctioned it. So as humans, as individuals, we're all out using ChatGPT and all these other things, and we're bringing them to work with us as well. Whereas as organizations, enterprises have the responsibility to ensure that anything that they sanction and anything that flows over their network is free of risk for the company. So we now have a world where the governance and risk is lagging adoption. And what our technology does is it overlays on top of the network, and it allows enterprises to understand what is happening with generative AI and to put protective controls around this. So and that might take the form of security, data security, making sure that people aren't uploading things that are, sensitive or valuable, etc., proprietary, things like that. We enable auditability. Should there be an incident related to generative AI? Should there be a legal matter related to generative AI? You can go back and audit that usage and have an official record of it. You need it for compliance, things like that. We also monitor intent so that people that are actively investing in generative AI, like you might not be having your folks use ChatGPT, or even if you are, you might actually be running a generative AI powered program or product or bot internally. Like, what is the intent? Is it being utilized? Are you getting value from it? Similarly, we help companies manage the human factors. What should your acceptable use policy be? And are people reading it? Can you enforce it? If people aren't allowed to put customer documents on to public GPTs, is that actually happening or not? How do you enforce that? How do you have that policy? And finally, we think that with the speed at which the world is moving into generative AI, people need to be taken along. So the education and the human factor is something that we support as well. So we've got a SaaS platform that does all of these things and enables all of these things. And we call it an adoption management platform because it covers more than security. But that's why we exist, because we think it is going to happen. We just want to make sure it happens safely and responsibly, and enterprises have a way to programatize that with us.
Okay. Well, that is very inclusive. Adoption management platform or AI trust, risk, and security management platform. Which phrase has more meaning for you?
So for me, practically adoption management is easier for customers to understand and people to relate to because the process of adoption has many things. AI TRISM, trust, risk, and security management, is an analyst term, which also I deeply respect. So Gartner has coined that term and we fit into those reports for Gartner and others. So we try to use them interchangeably. And most of this, I'm going to make a silly comment here, is about SEO, right? What people are looking for and how they find us. So we use both interchangeably. But when I'm out talking, I talk about adoption management, how to safely adopt and manage that process for the organization.
I like your clarity on that. What inspired you to get Portal 26 rolling?
So we started as a data security company before the days that ChatGPT exploded, which was end of 2022. And until then, we did secure analytics. So we basically have a vault, a platform where companies can slice and dice and analyze data while keeping it encrypted. So it's pretty cool stuff. And when we saw how fast generative AI was landing in the enterprise and among people, we realized that there's a need for analytics that is specifically pertaining to the usage and adoption of generative AI. Because if you have these analytics at play, you can make smarter decisions, whether it's about security or investment or ROI, etc. So we made an active, conscious decision based on, I want to say, 65 companies that were giving us input that this was something valuable. And they literally held our hands and led us to this platform and said, yes, you do general secure analytics, but we think you need to analyze AI because that's hugely needed. It's a big gap. And as this tidal wave of generative AI explodes onto the enterprise, this is going to be really valuable. So, it doesn't happen often in the world of a founder that customers tell you what to build right when it is time. So I feel fortunate that this happened to us and we have a product.
Can I ask you to call out your differentiators explicitly? What makes you totally unique?
Absolutely. So we are the only game in town at the moment that allows customers to have a generative AI forensic vault. And, I'll pause and let that sink in. It is only a matter of time, if it hasn't already happened, that anybody, whether they have sanctioned or unsanctioned use, has to deal with a generative AI incident. Things are going to go wrong. They are going wrong, right? And so when that happens, your general counsel or your legal office or your risk office or your internal audit or your regulatory compliance office without 4026 does not have any recourse to go back and recreate what actually happened and what your organizational exposure was. There's no way to do it, right? Because, ChatGPT is out there. ChatGPT, you can't go back to ChatGPT and say, what did I do, 2 months ago with you and what kind of attachment did I upload? You can't do that. So the ability to do audit and forensics is unique, it's powerful, and it's hugely valuable to any compliance sensitive, but definitely regulated and other sorts of organizations. That's a big differentiator for us. The other big differentiator is we're actually also, along with that forensics, able to tell you how well your existing security controls are doing. So we've got this notion of a gap analysis. You can go into Portal 26 and you can say, show me everything that happened over the last 30 days that was critical or high in risk, and also show me everything that was allowed to slip through my existing security controls. You can see that gap. That's very important as well, right? Because in a world where you only have, let's say, that DLP or the data loss controls, anything that got through, got through. You don't know. Nobody's telling you. You have no way to figure out if you had any configuration or a gap in your posture. So that AI security posture identification is something we do very well. So sometimes we call ourselves a second line of defense because you got your existing investments, but they may or may not be working for generative AI because it looks different. Here's the gap. So hugely valuable again. That's a big differentiator. So the third big area of differentiation for us is that we're also looking at intent. So we're also looking to see, well, what are people trying to do with this, right? And that helps us advise organizations although this is via technology, not humans, but it allows us to advise organizations on what the impact of that usage is going to be. So, for example, right, if you're seeing generative AI enabled marketing collateral creation, and you're seeing exactly how much of it is happening, where it's happening, what the use case is, what tools are being used, it allows you to design your marketing organization of the future in a much more informed way. You'll make the right investments. If those are strategic things that are customer facing, you might invest in a private AI that does that, things like that. So we're guiding AI investment decisions on the ground in boardrooms today. Very, differentiated. Not a lot of platforms do that. And if you ever wanted to build a business case, 426 is right there. We can tell you this thing that you brought in house. Here's how risky it was externally. Here's it was for free, but you're going to pay this much, but you're going to sort of, save on time as well as risks and things like that. And it was a very long answer to that question, but did it satisfy your question?
Vaulting, gap analysis, forensics, intent. Yes, you just offered
Okay.
quite a bit. I want to ask you three different subjects here. I'll start with this. Let's say I'm a director of IT, or I'll even give you a personal example. In my former role as a former CISO, I had to do a lot of readiness assessments to make sure that my organization could take on Copilot, for example, that shares and permissions and files were properly arranged just so that we could use Microsoft Copilot internally safely. How would a Portal 26 made my life easier in that moment?
So thank you for that question. You actually bring up an important distinction that I should have made sooner. There are two distinct areas of AI governance, one of which we address and the other that other organizations in the market address. So what we do is around usage and adoption governance. Once you are in a position to use AI, how are you using it? Are you using it safely, etc.? The part that I didn't talk about is model and data governance. So in order for you to effectively use a model or train a model, what should your data pipelines look like? When you use a model, is there any bias in there? Are the algorithms transparent, etc.? That's an area that is a heavy investment we have decided to not do that because there's a lot of noise and a lot of energy going in there already. So some of what you mentioned falls in that world. How do you organize your enterprise's data so that you can most take advantage? That would not be us. But what would be us would be once you are out there using Copilot, how are you using it? Are you getting value? Are you doing stupid things? Do your people need to be educated? Are you getting value based on what you're spending? Are you saving time? Is it so general purpose that people are still going out and using specialized tools because Copilot might be the jack of all trades and master of none, which, again, not saying anything about Copilot, just hypothetically. Those are the things we help with. Does that help?
It absolutely does help. AI is a gigantic picture right now, and you are helping probably where you should be helping. You are targeted, and that's excellent. You mentioned earlier that you've had a lot of partners and clients that have been helping focus you and your product, making sure everything works together. That doesn't surprise me given your background. You have been doing CEO, founder, and mobilizing within security for a long time. So the fact that you had the partners and clients that were feeding you the right advice and at the right time, that your mind was open to it, that doesn't surprise me at all. That's probably one of the reasons you have so many awards in your background there.
Thank you.
But I do want to ask this. There was a moment, and I was looking at an interview from you from a year ago, and you started talking about a converged solution. You had clients saying, we're using your stuff, Portal 26, but we're also still having to use this tool and this tool and this tool. And that led you to expanding your product, what you call a converged solution. Can you tell me just a little bit more about, and this might be a CEO founder question, you are willing to pivot, you are willing to look at GenAI and where your solutions needed to be and make a change.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the recognition of how early we are in the generative AI adoption life cycle, it mandates that you have an open mind and you are willing to both expand, to refine, and to converge customers' needs. And eventually, I think no matter how good your idea, if it's not extremely usable, and free of friction, you aren't going to see the kinds of adoption that you want. And so whether it was about, converged functionality, which is what you brought up, which we did, we listened and we did, like I mentioned, there's 8 different things we do, but instead of building an 8 module platform and, charging for each module, like, oh, here's forensics and here's what, you kind of go do your forensics here and you go do, your incident response over here, etc., things like that. We take this convergence feedback really seriously. The other thing we learned, which was similar, but in that same time frame, was lack of friction. So you will, and I didn't mention this as differentiator, you should go back and add it, is we are the only company that deploys in minutes. We can get our fastest time to global production deployment is 8.5 minutes. And that is amazing because of all the work we've already done on integrations, on understanding where we need to sit in the infrastructure at the, customers, how that data flow needs to happen, how the pipelines, all that we did. And we were first to market. Whereas our competitors, we're talking like 6 months, 12 months. If you're doing agent rollouts, you're in the land of, who knows, getting so minutes that was the other big differentiator. Sometimes that sells by itself. I don't have to do much.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. A low friction implementation,
Yes,
incredibly valuable. And if the forensics and the auditing are as you are describing, that's a magic formula. I would like to ask you to go back to 2017, 2018, 2019. Could you talk me through how you chose which features to build first?
wow. So 2019 is when we started our company. And like I mentioned, we started in the secure analytics domain. We did at the time what we were calling searchable encryption. And this company has an interesting history. It took us 2 years to bring that to market because not only had we to write our algorithms, we had to, go through all the patent processes. Then we had to go through NIST to get certified for the standard encryption algorithm so that we could overlay them on our. So it wasn't until the fall of 2021 that we actually had a generally available platform to do that secure analytics. This is well before generative AI came out. And then we went and raised some money. So we didn't want to be that startup that raises money on, a concept. We wanted to have real adoption. And we had some adoption. Then we did. So for all of 2022 until November, we sold that encrypted analytics platform. And that again was built with a lot of customer input to understand what kinds of data manipulation they needed to do, etc. And it was very successful. That was 2022 was a great year for us. You'll see a lot of awards and everything for 2022. Then again, based on, like I said, initially and eventually 65 companies telling us this analytic capability, use it to generative AI. It took us 2.5 quarters, the first part of 2023, to do that, to build the generative AI analytics and adoption management capabilities on top of our secure analytic platform. Are you tracking? So it's been a journey.
I'm not only tracking, I would like to give some other insight to our listeners. You just talked about pivoting and transforming your product from 2022 to 2023, which by some accounts would be called like the winter of SaaS discontent, when many companies were struggling with revenue, with operations, with partnerships. You are a CEO founder who had the vision and accepted the accountability to make hard changes during a very difficult time. That is tough to do. You did it. For my benefit, tell me some of the incredible people on your team that helped make that happen.
Absolutely. So my head of products is a gentleman named Arti Raman. He came to us from Data Robot. Interestingly enough, when he came, this is like synchronicity, right? Which I do believe in. When he came to us, we looked at all of that enterprise analytic background he had because Data Robot, right? And so when we saw this AI opportunity, again, right, the other thing that Data Robot did was AI, like AI model self-service. So his AI background took over and he saw what the customers were telling. And he was like, oh my gosh, like I've been sent, to this earth to actually do this kind of transition. It was amazing. Similarly, our head of engineering, his name is Karthik, and he came to us from Verizon Media. He ran the ad platform for Yahoo for 17 years. Same thing. Initially, we looked at him for his ability to do this massive enterprise grade analytics, which is what we started with. He saw this AI opportunity. He saw what Amazon was doing with Bedrock, and he was like, oh, wow, this is, because when you have a horizontal technology like we did before, it's, you look for horizontal go to market, you look for like general applicability. It's completely night and day when you sell a specific use case and a specific application. You focus down, you bring out the features in your underlying platform that manifest their value in a different way. So same with Karthik Mariappan, who's our head of engineering, hugely instrumental, totally saw, because they did a lot of ML, at Verizon Media as well, and he just had a lot of data. So similarly, our head of strategy comes to us from Capgemini. And again, like leading, the charge in terms of enterprise best practices, frameworks, business process transformation. So seeing what generative AI does there, huge. Same with Neil Cohen, who you've met, who again is a master of understanding new markets and crisply articulating go to markets for those. So I'm surrounded by just people that are incredibly experienced and smart. And what I find amazing is that, like I said, 2022 was a great year for us. We added a lot of cash to our balance sheet from selling that analytics. But for all of us to get together and see the potential in the generative AI and take that, the funds that we raised and take our investors along and say, we're actually going to make this transformation. It will take us 2.5 quarters. We're going to do it, was amazing. And here's the final thing. Our customers that were on the encrypted analytics platform have taken the journey with us as well. So they're using the generative AI and they were now leaders in AI adoption because they had the benefit of the governance and risk management and all the analytics that we offered. So we're very lucky, fortunate to have that.
That's an awesome story. To anyone that might be listening to this on Apple Podcasts, you're not seeing me smile right now. So I'm catching some of the subtleties of Arti's story. She talked about her strategy leader, her product leader, her engineering leader, and marketing. The subtlety is even her head engineer was customer centric in these particular moments. And one of the things that Arti mentioned was her engineer, Karthik, had even come from the ad space. So paying attention to what the customer is telling you. And you took all of that, looked at the rest of what Gen AI was doing, and you said, we're going to move. That's very cool. That's very cool. Arti, I'd like to also quote you from December of last year. And it's a time where you're talking about the total addressable market. And here's your quote. You said, with the current projections for the value created by generative AI being set to 4.4 trillion, according to McKinsey, Portal 26 is pursuing a $440 billion opportunity. End quote. What I would like to ask you is, it's been a very busy year in generative AI. This quote is from 10 months ago. Has the total addressable market changed, or are you still seeing everything as it's on fire, let's go?
I don't know if the numbers have been revised, frankly, because, some of that measurement we did to assure ourselves we're doing the right thing here. But I will tell you that there are some flavors internally that have emerged that weren't there last year. So last year, our thesis was we're going to help people adopt. And we know that they're going to need to know all these things to make good decisions, whether it's around security, securing the adoption, whether it's around making the right investment decisions, allocating their licenses, how to spend their tokens, etc. Right? That was the thesis. Today, we know that a lot of that investment did pan out. But today what we're doing is unblocking POCs. See, here's what happened. All of 2023 and 2024, everybody understood the power and potential because as individuals, we're already seeing it. There's no question that ChatGPT makes you more productive, risk or no risk, right? So we all know that. So we had enough grounds, enough basis to go jump into enterprise POCs. And, everyone's funding them too. The companies are funding them themselves. The hyperscalers are funding them. You got like billions going in every quarter into POCs. But a very, very large percentage of those, I want to say 70%, are not going into production. That's a problem, right? Because you're expecting this flow of money, but that's a problem. So today, what I only need to go say is, hey, how much of your money is locked up in these POCs? Wouldn't you like to see them go into production so you actually see the benefit of what's getting in your way? And interestingly enough, it's all the same things. Oh, I need it to be auditable. I need to measure my risk. I need to make sure, that my policies, et cetera, et cetera. So it's the governance components that come out that are holding us up.
Unblocking POCs. My guess is because of your success with the adoption management framework, you can probably also go to your clients and give them analytics and facts. If you unblock this, here's what we've seen as value because of our other customers and peers.
Sure.
So you're probably bringing a lot to the table there.
And the obstacles to getting the green light to roll a POC into production are many of the things we talked about, right? So we have some regulators that are not allowed to go into production without observability. Just like no enterprise app gets rolled out without logs, right? So we solved some of these foundational problems.
You've brought up hyperscaling. You've brought up some of the other technologies and advancements that are very, very specific to GenAI. How are you keeping pace? That might be a technology question. It might be a culture question. How are you keeping pace?
Partnerships, alignment. So we have very strong partnerships. I'll give you the example of AWS. We're very, very closely aligned, and all of the innovation or with, the secure web gateways, you see all the traffic, Zscalers, Netscopes, those guys. So we have very, very strong partnerships. And again, we're very unique in this respect that our go-to-market respect the existing investment that enterprises have already made. So, and this is in direct contrast to 100% of our competitors. And I'll back up a little and explain. So our competitors are saying, oh, well, we are an AI gateway. Send all of your AI traffic through us, and we're going to look at it and tell you things about it. Well, I'm a large enterprise. I am not going to send all my traffic through a brand new startup's new proxy. Doesn't matter how good it is. Likewise, they're saying, oh, here's a browser extension. Roll it out to all of your desktop. Here's an IDE plugin. Roll it out. Well, again, right? Maintenance nightmare. So it's challenging. We decided we're respecting everything that you've already put in. Maybe you already have a, web proxy that you use. Maybe you have a DLP that you already use. Point being that because we're standing on the shoulders of giants, as you say, right? AWS is the one to sneeze at, neither is Zscaler, Netscope, others. They're all our partners, and we are stubbornly complementary. We see what they do, and we extend it into generative AI. We see what, how far Amazon takes you, and we make sure that we can take that POC into production. So we have the benefit of all of that, and they feed us constantly with like requirements, with additional functionality. And so our product gets better and better because it only needs to start where the very large existing deployments leave off. And I think that's like, now I'm sort of sharing my secret, publicly, but that's been something that both sets us apart, and also makes it very easy for customers, right? Because like a CIO can go back and say, hey, I'm already halfway there with my Netscope. Right now, all I need to do is add port 26. We're not rolling anything new out. We're not completely transparent, things like that.
A simple rollout and implementation can absolutely make the difference when you're talking to your practitioners in the field. Maybe you can take me a closer step to cybersecurity and threats. Have you found that you've had to change based on the threat landscape what you are doing?
Yes and no. So we have the notion of detectors, automatic detectors built into our product. that detect risky usage. And those detectors, we constantly keep them updated based on the different ways in which, you can do bad things using generative AI. We do that. We also are part of an enterprise threat, especially insider risk program. So we're part of your threat management programs, your insider risk programs, mostly from a detection standpoint. And then ourselves, you should know that our own attack surface, if you will, is minimal because of our encryption roots. So we could get attacked tomorrow and lose everything in our infrastructure and still not expose a single customer. Because remember, we do encrypted analytics. We also let our customers hold their own encryption keys. So, should they wish for whatever reason to turn off everything, they can turn it off on their end. It's very secure, but mostly our role is on the detection and enabling customers to run their internal and external threat management programs.
Well, that makes me happy, and I haven't even had the opportunity to use Portal 26. But with the encryptions, with Bring Your Own Key, you're definitely helping your clients. And speaking internally, I imagine the privacy and cyber folks within your own organization are probably very happy too.
Oh yes, we can limit our own risk in that way.
Regions, markets, targets, where is Portal 26 growing?
US primarily at the moment. We do have some feet on the ground in Asia Pacific, and we primarily work through our partners over there. We support them, but most of the customer facing work happens there. We have a lot of interest from the EU, but we serve it from the US. So we don't have an office, but as you might imagine, right, a lot of the data privacy related concerns around generative AI, a lot of the employee adoption concerns around generative AI are heavy in the EU. They have a lot of regulation, etc. But we do support that from the US at the moment.
You're bringing up a curiosity. To work within the European Union, in a lot of cases, they may demand that the artificial intelligence technologies are hosted onshore within the bounds physically of the European Union. For example, Microsoft's Copilot runs primarily from France, things like that. I imagine as you're growing in Asia Pacific, and as you continue to grow in the EU, you're going to have to physically grow as well. That's just kind of the nature of how this works.
Yeah.
I guess early congratulations on being an incredibly dynamic international CEO. That'll be coming soon enough at scale. How about your teams within your own organization? How are you growing? Where are you investing internally with your people?
So we are out of the US and India at the moment. So we have a lot of our engineering operations in India. However, we do have public sector customers and we serve them entirely from the US with our US team. So as far as our own employees, that's where we are. We are seeing our core capabilities stay within the US and India, but sales and marketing is where we are seeing expansion. And that's where we're seeing, maybe expanding out beyond the US and India. On a technology infrastructure side, again, we are partners with giants and we literally ride on top of their infrastructure. So it is no challenge for us to support an EU customer that needs to be served out of the EU. We're already integrated into all of those data centers and infrastructure. That's not a problem. Sometimes as you might imagine, depending on who the customer is, they want support out of here or there. And we're managing at the moment, US and India. But data residency requirements, all of that, we're able to meet just based on the infrastructure partnerships that we have.
That's awesome. It also suggests that your infrastructure is very flexible.
We're cheating. We're leveraging what other people have already built. And I think that's...
the code is supposed to be reusable, my friend. That's the right choice.
Exactly.
Where will you be in 2 years, 3 years? What's the growth projections?
So I would say that we have, more than doubled. So private companies, so kind of keeping the actual numbers to myself.
Yep.
But relative to when we launched, October of last year is when we brought this GenAI application. We have more than doubled from a revenue standpoint. From a number of customer standpoint, we have I want to say we are 4x from where we were, the first quarter of our launch. So I think from a sales trajectory, we're doing really well. I think the metrics that I look at are repeatability. So, vertical industry specific repeatability, because as you might intuit, generative AI adoption is very use case oriented. Everybody's thinking use cases. Where am I going to use generative AI? Oh, I'm going to use it to support software development, AI assisted software development, AI assisted sales enablement, AI assisted, customer support. So it's all use case centric. And if you marry use case with industry, you get the formula for repeatability. That's what I'm looking for. So for example, we're strong in financial services. And I want to make sure that those financial services use cases, we're selling like 5 of them, 10 of them, right? So we can manage and understand our growth, because otherwise this horizontal technology that everybody can use for everything, it's difficult to build internal competencies that scale, because still a salesperson has to go speak the language of the customer. So that's what I am looking for, to have like that kind of growth within an industry sector and use case, because then we can also support it with partnerships with, systems integrators, with people building, like we have, for example, 2 companies at the moment that have built a board level consulting practice for generative AI adoption based on our platform. So that's sort of the
Wow.
metrics we're looking for, not just pure revenue, because I think from there you can really get, exponential growth as opposed to, toughing it out on a linear progression. That makes sense.
It does make sense. I'd like to take some time and reflect with you. Let's just go back a little bit to maybe your time with Symantec.
Mm-hmm.
What were some lessons learned or personal growth situations you had there that led you to where you are now?
So at Symantec, I did product management and product strategy work for the enterprise division, so not Norton. I also ran competitive intelligence for Symantec company-wide and UX company-wide. So an interesting, left brain, right brain thing. One of the things my company did was support acquisitions. So part of our charter was to understand the market and understand the gaps. And I benefited from Symantec in 3 really significant, measurable ways. The first one was there's no better place to learn the nuts and bolts of cybersecurity than Symantec. And they were not just a powerhouse, in their time, they were also very employee development focused. So we got a lot of training and exposure and hands-on. So I feel like I can almost credit all of my cyber foundation to being at Symantec. So that was one huge benefit. The second thing was that by supporting comparative intelligence and having a whole team that did that, we were able to look into and understand from a customer need where the value lies, where's the white space, where the gaps are unfilled. And so that initial desire to go start a data security company because of all the ransomware attacks that had started around that time, it all came from that position of understanding, because not only, was I personally curious, I also had the resources at Symantec to uncover and understand that. And Symantec was highly acquisitive. So, we had a lot of exposure to that. And finally, I mean, there isn't anybody that has it in the Valley that's anybody that wasn't at one point part of Symantec or McAfee or VM or one of those, right? So the power of the network is intense. And my team alone, and we were like 8 of us that reported up to, to our boss. There are 4 startups right there in my own group, and they're all, one of them, has been acquired. So it's very much, I want to say, one of those places where that was a center of innovation. So I feel fortunate to have been there.
That's just about the best story possible. I invite you for any final remarks, my friend. Are there other things you'd like to share?
Well, so the main message that I have for anybody that's listening is that generative AI is here to stay, and everybody at one point in time, and I think it's going to be sooner than later, is going to need to have the ability to be accountable and represent that usage in an accountable way. So I would encourage folks to take the time and invest in governance or adoption management or whatever you want to call it, their, investments in the generative AI technology itself. Because I've not met one organization that hasn't immediately found use for the kinds of capabilities we have. So I would encourage giving that type of thinking a chance. And other than that, don't be afraid. Go out and experiment. If you don't experiment, you will lose out. So I feel like this technology is the way of the future.
Who from your organization will we get a chance to see on 8 November when you come to our annual conference?
Oh, wow. That might be the hardest question you have asked me so far. I want to say our head of sales, Dallas Thompson, will be there for sure. I understand we might have one, if not more, of our customers that will be speaking to Portal 26 at the conference as well. If I'm right, Neil will be there too, our head of marketing. And then, if they tell me to, because I do whatever my team tells me to do, I might be there myself, but they manage my schedule in this respect.
Well, it'll be brilliant to talk to Neil, and I would certainly like to shake your hand, my friend. So we've been talking with Arti Raman. This is our special guest today. As a CEO and founder from Portal 26, Arti is making a difference for all of us in the cybersecurity space and in the generative AI space. I know we can expect good things from Arti, as her long litany of awards already clearly show. We're looking forward to hearing from you on 8 November. If there is anything at all at any time, the Cybersecurity Council is here to help you. I'm here to help you. I wish you a very good day, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me and giving me this wonderful platform. I appreciated your questions and your support as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Cybersecurity Council. This council strives to showcase unique cybersecurity leadership stories. Its mission is to demystify and simplify cybersecurity across the entire business landscape. Best practices, lessons learned, operational recommendations, it's all here. Brought to you by the Cybersecurity Council, LLC, Brian Green and myself, Scott Brammer, will be your hosts. We have come in from the cyber wilderness, not just to share what we have learned, but to find and elevate some of the most important voices in cyber. Brian is a former Division I college football player who has experience across many cybersecurity software startups. He has a successful exit on his resume too. He's also the founder and president of this very community, the Cybersecurity Council. Myself, Scott Brammer, I'm a former Marine and active CISO, and I have 3 patents in cyber and risk. As hosts, we are here to elevate best practices and strengthen the cyber community, both for the community itself and its allies. The Cybersecurity Council has had auspicious beginnings here in the Austin, Texas community, but we are already going worldwide. Everyone should be a cyber practitioner. The views expressed on this podcast, either by us or by our guests, are our own, and they do not necessarily reflect the view of our organizations. This podcast is intended as a forum for professional knowledge, but it is not legal or regulatory advice. Always consult your legal professionals for legal and regulatory matters. And now,
assemble the council.